Well, thank you for coming on the Red Carpet podcast.
You're welcome. This is exciting. We've been trying to do this for such a long time, and
Yes, we have, we have.
today's the
You
day.
know, I've done research about you. You have done a lot. I'm being honest, and amazing. Um, First of all, many people may be wondering what attracted you to get into this entertainment industry.
Ooh, that's a really good question. Okay, and I start with um look, I'm a kid from the northern beaches of Sydney, Australia. I have had no idea what musical theatre was. I wanted to be a hairdresser, to be honest. But I used to get really bad eczema as a child. So the dermatologist was like, no, you're not going to be a hairdresser. And I was destroyed. And around that time, my father took my brother and I to see a musical. And that musical was Annie. And I remember thinking, that, I'll just do that. And I really didn't know what that was. We had some choirs at school. There was an amateur musical theater group called McKelley Musical Society. And my dad was a teacher and he knew somebody involved with that. And they said, well, she can come along and she can be in the ensemble of Oliver. So I went. I was terrible. I am actually very introverted and very shy by nature. People don't believe that. But I went along and I really tried, and there was something in me that said, keep going. And I'm sure the Amateur Musical Society didn't want me to keep going because I was so bad. Um, but I went back and I did the second production I did was called Pippin, the Stephen Schwartz musical. And there was a wonderful director from Broadway. His name was Robert Wells, and Robert Wells was a hoofer. And Robert Wells really took me under his wing, and other members of the musical society really took me under their wing as well. And they taught me that, I think kindness and, including people in the process and being a part of something was such an important part of what we do, and Bob taught me all about Broadway, this thing called Broadway. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I didn't know you needed a visa and had to, get some sort of credits to get here. And, and I did. I worked really, really hard. And Bob sadly passed away. And just before he passed, I remember sitting with him in hospice, and I made a promise to him that I would be on Broadway. And he said, all right, let's do this. And he passed. And it took many, many years to finally make my Broadway debut, but it was a promise to him. So yeah, that's how it all, that's a bridge version of the story. Yeah.
It's amazing. Growing up from Australia and having all the dream of, succeeding and your passion and, now stepping foot into Broadway, and that's really encouraging to a lot of young actors and young ladies, for sure.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, and I've been reflecting on this a lot because I feel like the notion of what an actor is really changing, and I know there's some sort of mm, pushback is the wrong word, but it's a real craft, and
Hmm.
there are skills to it. Just as like there are techniques to sing, there are techniques to dance, there are techniques and skills to what it is to really step into being an actor. And it's award season at the moment, and as performers, creatives, people aspiring or accomplished, we're all watching those performances to see how the director crafted scenes, how the cinematographer created the world, the designers created the world, how the actors pulled off those performances. And it's such a skill, and it takes such guts and courage and backbone and thick skin and tenacity and I really do encourage young performers, if you have that seed, that spark that you want to give it a go, go for it. And, I coach a lot of actors and, often if they're younger and the parents are worried, and, rightly so, it's a tough industry. But if you really love it, go for it and surround yourself by fantastic people who support
Hmm.
you and pick you up when you fall and cheerlead. I'm going to go and see a friend tonight who's from Australia. She's making her Broadway debut, and I'm going to go and support her because it sometimes can feel like it's impossible. Like, to your point, like what's a surfer girl from Narrabeen?
Right, right.
What am I doing in New York? What am I thinking? I don't know,
Right. But
And
you made
what
it.
well, yeah, but opportunities present themselves. I was performing in Australia and I was asked to go and design a television series in Kenya. And I remember thinking, what? And I thought, yeah, why not? So I went and designed a television series in Kenya. And then I designed a feature film in Kenya and I was nominated for an African Academy Award for design. And then I was in Asia directing. And then last year when we were messaging, I was in Shanghai, performing the role of Marya in Great Comet, and now I'm back here, and I'm in school and I'm auditioning, and there's that creative drive, and
Hmm.
sometimes it's shitty. I'll be honest, and sometimes your heart just hurts so badly, but if you want to do it, show up and do it, and give it a go, and yeah never say never. And if that carrot's dangling, grab the carrot.
Right. You made a point on because you said, you understand the parents, and being in this entertainment industry, you're totally right. Right? It's tough being in this industry. You have to get your your ch child or your daughter or your son getting used to auditions, but also getting them ready for the denials, like the no's, why you didn't get the role, what was wrong with me. And I think I personally believe that is that is the hardest for a lot of young actors out there in the beginning because it's like, what's going on? All right, why? Why this? What's going on? Is it this or is it this or is it that? But I believe after they pass that, they start getting used to it. So you're totally right. It is,
Mm.
the parents out there have a right to be worried. I 100% agree with you because, you're right. It's tough. It's tough. But also I believe it makes them stronger, in my personal opinion. I don't know if you agree, but I believe it makes them stronger.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost a clash of worlds. It's almost a clash of a linear world that we've created, and that you do your study, you earn your merits, and you get the job. And
Hmm.
that job might be corporate, or it might be teaching, or it might be service, or it might be, it could be any range of things. And then you have this where the world clashes with creative industries, and I think also with competitive elite sport is another area where it's not linear. It can't be linear. And so you've got this world that exists in a dreamscape of, you're going to run 200 meters. And at the end of that 200 meters, if you ran it the fastest, you're going to win a gold medal. Now, on that day, your foot might slip on the block, or there might be somebody might, jump the gun. And so the race starts again. Or, you mightn't be feeling great, or you might be running in a different climate, or, there are all these variables that make the world that we create in and work in non-linear. And so you've got this world, these two worlds colliding where someone's going, but you did the work. Why didn't you book the job? Like you looked really good. You sang the notes really well. You did the dancing really well. You learned your lines really well. And then you go, yeah, but there's all these variables
Hmm.
that might mean that you don't book it. And that doesn't mean that you didn't do a great job. That doesn't mean that casting are not going, damn it, we really want to hire that person, but we had one track and it went to so and so for whatever reason.
Right.
And, often the person who books it is the perfect choice for the role. They did sing it, dance it, act it, look the part perfectly. There were also 10 other people who also could have slotted in.
Hmm. Hmm.
And at the end of the day, you had to pick one, and it's a really interesting world where these two things collide because then to your point about you've got families or friends who go, oh, but why wasn't it you? Did you get feedback? And it's like, what for? I was great. I didn't book it. And that's okay. And it's this strange world where you have to be 100% in and 100% out at the same time. And you have to be prepared to go full in with every single bit of your talent and ability and study and
Hmm.
research and hard work. And you have to sit there on this precipice of hope. And then your agent calls and goes, yes or no. Or if it's a no, you don't even hear. You just go,
Right.
right, I'm just here. Great. Okay, cool. And somehow, again, this duality of this clashing of worlds in, the human brain. You've got your linear mind, which is, your egoscape just going, why didn't you book it? You were terrible. That person's, and on the other hand, you've got, the dreamscape self who is so fragile, who is going, oh no, oh, it's okay, and you're trying to figure it out. But there's nothing to figure out because the world doesn't exist until you book the job and step into that world. So you're constantly living in dreamscape. And if you're trying to explain that to a parent who's going, oh, but I wanted you to book it and I don't want to see you cry or I don't want to see you hurt or bitter or resentful that you didn't get it. And it's like, you've got to somehow let all of that go. And it's a really, really strange world. But again, it comes back to joy. If you're really enjoying it and you want to keep showing up, keep enjoying it. Keep showing up. Keep auditioning. Keep doing the work. Keep going to class. But if you don't enjoy it, it's hard. And it's also, Marcy Phillips is an amazing casting director for ABC, and she has a fantastic book, and it's $10 on Amazon. And I'm doing a plug for Marcy Phillips' book here. But there's a really great part in it where she talks about, you know, the industry is a mirror, life is a mirror for what we're experiencing as humans, and anything that you're going through, if you think that, booking a job or going to the audition or hiding behind a character is going to remove all of that, I'll be happy when I book that job. I'll be happy when I do this. I'll be happy when somebody sees me. I'll be happy when that casting director calls me and books me. You won't be. It just magnifies and magnifies and magnifies until
Hmm.
you do the work on yourself as a human and sit in that center of duality of humanity and joy and sadness, and it's always going to be there. So that was a
Of
long
course.
answer to your question.
No, no, no. That's like I said, you touched a lot of base on that, and I
Mm,
totally agree.
mm,
And being in this industry, is excuse me, it's thick in bones,
mm,
right? And um, it's fun as well. But again, you're 100% right. It is a, what do you call it? A lot of people ask, is there a word to describe it? And
mm,
the word to describe it is, some people describe it differently. It
mm,
is it's thick and bones.
mm,
It's tough. You have
mm,
auditions, you have roles that you may not understand why you didn't get it. And But I think a lot of people also misunderstands the entertainment industry, some people,
Hmm.
because they think we're all competing against each other, and we're not. We're not, And a lot of people are surprised when they hear that. They're like, "Wait a minute, why? What? You're not competing?" I think, "No, we're not." And a lot of people are like, "Well, okay, but it's so this is why I love social media, especially Instagram. It's because you are so surprised with how many directors and actors and producers and models and singers will all follow each other and support each other. It doesn't matter what state we're living in, what country we're living in. We all come together and support each other in the community. And once somebody steps foot in that entertainment industry, they all realize, wow, it's not a competition. This is a community support, and it's we're a family. I think that is one thing I love about the entertainment industry because you don't see the person in real life, but you become so connected. The support and communicating and talking, and then when you meet each other on set or in public, it's like you already know them, right? You're like, oh hey, how are you doing? And he's like, I know you, and blah blah blah. Oh, well, it's like you have that bond, right? And I think also one thing I wanted to say is that in the entertainment industry, actors and actresses, you can communicate with each other to give advice about auditions. That's one thing
Hmm.
I love. You may be auditioning for this role and say, "Hey, can you tell me this is good? Did I make a good emotional scene? Did I make a good angry scene?" And as yourself, as your friends who are surrounding you, the community, they can give you good and bad feedback, and that's how you learn. And then when you go to audition, you remember all those feedbacks that you got when you
Hmm.
show them your auditions. And I think personally that will help you as well. So
Hmm.
I, I everything
Yeah,
you said, you touched base.
yeah,
I
I think
agree.
it's really, I think, I think it's really interesting what you're saying about um it's almost like a reset. Like I feel like in the 80s there was very much this go harder, thrash, I think was more competitive. And I think there's been a reset of human connection and of
Mm-hmm.
interconnectivity. We're all in this together, and there's going to be times where we book it. There's going to be times when we don't, and we can be awful about it. We can say, I hate that person. Like, why did they book it and not me? But where does it get you? Where does that energy um, and angst get you? And I feel like even, during the pandemic, remember that? Um,
Yes, I
when all of a
remember that. It's been
sudden,
a long
it's like,
time.
I mean, it seems surreal. It's like, wait, did I imagine that happened? Oh yeah. But it's like, it's almost like the universe stepped in and went, okay, all the kids on the planet have been really naughty. None of them have done as they're told, so we're going to take all their toys away. And so globally, all the toys were taken away. And so you have this moment in history where you go, oh, all of those things that I was angry about or annoyed about or sad about, or it all got taken away. And I yearned for that. I yearned for the boards to come off the Broadway theaters. I yearned for people to be back in those seats in auditoriums. I yearned for people to be dancing on those stages and the energy filling the space, to be, to all come together. And there's that essence of somatic energy where, you're interconnected by the work that we do. And there is that sense of community. I think at that time too, it became really evident when, a lot of people were sick. A lot of people were trying to show up and doing their jobs. I mean, there was the wonderful story with Come From Away when the entire company was out. All were sick, and all of them had to go in. Each show before each show, they all had to sit in the auditorium and test. And if they were COVID positive, they got sent home. They're all getting sent home. And the Come From Away company created an alumni cast. And a friend, a wonderful Australian performer, Marika Aubrey, she was in town. She got called in to play Beverly Bass, made her Broadway debut as an alumni cast for Come From Away. And you started to see really the humanity of what it takes and how much energy it takes. And look, when you're feeling great and on top of the world and your body is literally alive and on fire and you're like, I could, conquer the planet. Yeah, that's great. When you're injured and you've got a ear infection and you're trying to show up and you're going, oh God, you're doing your vocal warm up and you feel dreadful, but you're going to show up. You're going to do the best you can on that given day, and for yourself, for your company, for the audience. And another thing that happened around that time too was swings. Oh, the swing is on or the understudy is on. And there was this notion of like, oh, maybe you're being, it was a less than performance because you saw the cover or the swing. And and companies started doing shout outs, National Swing Day started to happen, and people started to really understand what it took for a swing. I mean, my God, I bow down to swings. I bow down to understudies. Anybody who can learn those roles, do it every now and then at a moment's notice, and step onto that stage and absolutely smash it. I am just blown away by that talent, that skill, the backbone, the chutzpah, the courage to show up in that way. And I think there started to be this shift in away from individualism. And I think with, individualism has become such a thing with, to your point about social media, where you can sit on your social media and go, I choose to like that. I choose to post this. I'm drinking a cup of coffee. I'm going to take a photo of myself drinking my cup of coffee. Like it's this individual lens that is always in extreme close up. It's never taken out to a wide lens. The
Mhm.
master shot, like what is in the master shot? Who else is experiencing something in this master shot? Rather than my point of view is XYZ and that's it. And so I think when we see this pulling the lens out, we start to go, oh shit, these people have got six parents at home, or these people have a little kid who's, struggling with school, or these people, just lost their grandparent, or these people are showing up for each other to do a show for us, or to be on set for us, or to do, COVID testing for us so that we can have entertainment. And through that entertainment, we can somatically interconnect. And that's where there's this really lovely, sense of humanity,
Yes,
you know?
100%. You know,
Mm.
and us, I would say, actors and producers and directors is about making films and TV shows to tell people's stories. In movies,
Right, right.
right? 100%. Um,
Mhm.
I want to switch to Broadway because
Yes.
Broadway, everybody, when you hear about Broadway, everybody
Mm.
gets excited. What is the most exciting experience about Broadway?
Gosh, gosh. I mean, where do you
And
where
by
do
the
you
way,
start like that?
shout out to Leah, oh, what's her name? Leah Michelle, who was on Glee. Um, she's actually does Broadway now in New York. If she's still,
Well, she's not on Broadway. Leah Michelle's not on Broadway at the moment, but I mean, Leah Michelle started
yes,
as a
that's what I'm saying.
child
So
on Broadway. And
shout out to Leah. But
yeah.
what what can you tell a lot of people about Broadway, especially young actors that
Mm.
are looking up and say, "Hey,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
if Le Leah went from Broadway to be on a TV show, maybe
yeah,
I can start like that." So what
yeah,
have
yeah.
you as yourself as an actress experienced
Yeah.
in life lessoning? about
Yeah,
Broadway.
yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting when I first, we talked, about like my dream to move to the US and be on Broadway, and I was so geared up to like, the hard work and the preparation and uh, for me, my first experience was I'd been in New York for 6 weeks when I went to an equity chorus call, what's called an ECC. I didn't know what they were. I'd gone to a class and someone mentioned an ECC, and I was like, I don't know what that is. And so I went and I thought, I'll just check it out. And I went to the ECC for Mamma Mia. And from that experience, I booked the lead role in the Broadway National Tour of Mamma Mia. So, what I would say about that is if you have a dream to do Broadway, obviously you have to do the singing classes, do the acting classes. I have a degree in musical theater. Do the, do all the, make sure that you have headshots, make sure that you have a resume. Even if you don't have, if you're starting out and you don't have any experience, that's okay.
Hmm.
Put your name, put your contact details, put if you are, if you're non-union, that is okay. You have to start somewhere. Sometimes I think there can be this fear of oh, I've only done dance class. Okay, you've only done dance class for 15 years, so your ballet is very good. Put that you have done ballet for 15 years. Put whatever skill you have. If you speak another language, put that down. If you've done a show at school, put that down. You have to start somewhere. Sometimes we forget that it's okay to be a beginner.
100% true. Everything,
You've
pardon
got
me,
to be a
everything you
beginner.
just said right there is key. Put
Right,
everything. You
right,
speak another language. You have ballet. You have everything. That is the key. And that is 100%. I
right.
agree with you.
And you mentioned before too, ask questions. Like, I'd gone to a class and somebody mentioned an ECC. I was like, I don't know what that is. What is that? And they were like, oh, well, if you're an equity member, you can go to ECCs or EPAs, equity principal calls or equity chorus calls. They will list who from the casting team will be there. They would list who from the creative team will be there. They will list the casting office. If you're non-union, you can also line up to see if they will see non-union on that day. It can be a long wait. If you're non-union, you might also get told no. If it's a popular audition and you're trying to get seen as an equity member, you might miss out. But if you then have an agent, so there's some steps, if you're a beginner, try to get seen as a non-union member, try to work up to get your union card, go to an ECC, go to an EPA, try to go to class so you can get seen to get an agent. So there's some steps. Um, but I'd been in New York for 6 weeks. I got the call back to, in the package for Donna, and I booked it. And I got to say that, it was a very strange experience because sometimes you can be on the mouse wheel of getting the goal, getting the
Mhm.
impossible dream, the goal, the goal. I've got to work towards the goal. I've got to work hard towards the goal. And then all of a sudden, the goal is in your hand. And what I would really encourage people to do is to is to prepare for when you get the dream in your hand. Because I was so focused on how to book it, what I needed to do to book it, keep trying, keep studying, keep preparing to book it, that I hadn't prepared to book it when I booked it. And so I had this 3 months before I started rehearsals with Mamma Mia where I was like, what do I do now? I mean, obviously I figured it out. I figured out I better learn the role. I better, but I was so in preparation and study mode
Hmm.
that I hadn't
Hmm.
prepared to make the switch. So then the next part of that is when you book it, you're preparing stamina. You're preparing mindset. You're preparing, our Mamma Mia tour was grueling. We went out, we did 144 cities in 2 years. Some of our cities were 2 weeks. The shortest was one show. We did one matinee in New Hampshire. So we bust into New Hampshire. The crew had worked overnight. Um, Shout outs to crews who work on these tours who are just total badasses. They're just unreal, these people, and the kindest, most awesome people. Prepare like health, like physical health, mental health. What do you need? Do you need a snack bag? Do you need moisturizer? Do you need water? Do you need, a spritzer? I don't know what you might need. You figure it out for yourself. Do you need throat coat tea? Do you need a bag of Ricolas? I think it's called Ricolas. Is it Ricola? I don't know. That's my accent. But, what do you need to make sure you can do that job? Because you now got to show up because you've got a casting office, a production house, an agency who have bet on you to be able to do this job. So how are you showing up to do it? In each town that you go to on those tours, is there a massage place? Is there a gym? Is there a pool? What do you need at each of these tour stops to be able to do your job? Now that you booked it, you can't go, oh, well, booked it, I'll just sit back. No, you've got to be able to show up, and then so there's that experience. And then what I'll share about what happened then was that I didn't go to Broadway with Mamma Mia, but what did happen was I was invited to do Madison Square Garden. Now, I don't know about you, but you get that call, and of course you go, yes, I'm available to do Madison Square Garden. But again, there's a thing, it's like, oh, how am I showing up to do this gig
Hmm.
for 20,000 people and having an awesome time, but being on point, and so there's all that aspects. And then the next thing that I'll share with Broadway is the low and the high. So the low of my experience, and I share this not as a sub story, but I share this um as a uh what's the word, that it's okay to fail, for things to go wrong.
Right.
Because what happened with me with Broadway was I got injured. So I didn't do opening night with the company. I didn't do the cast recording. I didn't do the Tony Awards. And I went back into the show just after the Tony Awards. But that injury took me out because, again, I wasn't prepared. In Australia, I'd never been injured before. I'd never been injured. I always showed up to do my job. Um, and getting injured really threw me because I felt like I was a failure. I felt like I'd messed up. I felt it was my fault. I blamed myself. I was at the lowest of my the low. And talking about what you'd mentioned with people showing up for each other. There was a core group of friends from the show. Production, behind the scenes, cast, orchestra, and then also a group of friends in the industry and family and people outside the industry as well, who literally would call or text every day and were like, you have to get up. You have to get up. Because for me, it was so devastating. Um, I couldn't. I literally was so full of shame and self-blame, and that I'd let down my creative team and let down the cast. And it was such a heavy burden that it really took a lot of people to pull me out of that dark space. And so, for anybody going through that, I really, I was talking to a friend the other day who's, he's just finished up with one show and he's about to go into another, and he's been sick. And it just really hurt my heart because he felt so bad and, so low. And it's like, gosh, we're so hard on ourselves as performers. And, and I know even recently Audra McDonald posted something about, hey everyone, we've just opened Gypsy, but we're all sick. Can everyone just be a bit nice? And it's not sort of a like poor me or an excuse. It's just like we're human and sometimes things happen. And so, the low story for me was getting injured. And so, for anybody who's in that position or anybody who's aspiring, who doesn't even, sometimes when you're aspiring, you go, it's all going to be great. It's all going to be great. Sometimes it's not. And that's okay. You find your team. Find people around you, find people who can go, it's okay, let's just get a cup of tea. Let's just try and fix that injury today. You're gonna heal, it's gonna be okay. But then, so the flip side of that is, when I finally went back to the
Hmm.
show and my beautiful stage manager, Drew Neal, who I just worked with on a wonderful new workshop called Signs of Life. We were talking about this time, and so he put me on. I made my debut on a matinee, and my friend who's making her debut tonight in Moulin Rouge, I was talking to her about this, and she said, "I'm so excited." And I was like, "Yeah, it just seems like an impossible dream, especially when you're from another
Hmm.
country and you move here, you take the leap of faith." And I, you know, I
Amazing.
I don't think my feet hit the deck. I don't remember anything. It was just like it was like a deer in the headlights, and my heart just felt so full and so just an insanely surreal experience. And there's a photo of me somewhere in the curtain call, and I look like a 5-year-old in like a school concert. Like, I'm so proud to be on that stage. I'm so proud to be in that lineup with those extraordinary women, and this was Donna Summer, and to be in that lineup with Ari DeBose and LaShans, Storm Lever, and wonderful human beings, Afra Hines, Jenny LaRoche. I could list everybody off, those beautiful, beautiful people, incredible women, and then that whole team backstage,
Hmm.
the whole orchestra who were up, they were in a dressing room, and just people that I loved so much. And, even the front of house team, and, there's a wonderful woman, Tracy, who ran front of house at La Fontaine at that time, and
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
wonderful, just wonderful, wonderful people. And to be in that group and to have that whole life, from being a teenager, making a promise to Robert Wells that I would be on Broadway. And that was that moment. And it's very surreal. And for anybody dreaming of that, and whether you're a little kid or whether you're a teenager or whether you're in your 20s or whether you're older. I mean, I was much older by the time I made my Broadway debut, and part of me is like, what are you thinking? Why aren't you just lying on a beach in Bali having a good time? But it
Well,
was it was a dream.
you talk about um the journeys
Mm,
of your low point there,
mm, mm,
and but for me, you went right into talking about your high point. You took it
mm,
into a positive way, kind of, if you mind me. You get injured,
mhm,
but you were the way I was wording it and going through what I was listening to you is like you were talking about your high point as well.
mm,
And you have said you've never been injured, right?
mm,
No performer wants to be injured. Nobody. But I I know everybody, maybe not everybody, correct me.
mm,
Most people have experienced a low point in their life, in their career, who got
mhm,
injured. And
mhm,
I'm glad you told your story because
mm,
it's a testimony
mm,
of your telling everybody,
mm,
I myself went to a low point,
mm,
but that did not stop me.
mm,
And
mm,
I turned
mm,
it around and
mm,
make it into a high point. That's what I
mm,
was trying to say.
mm.
And
Yeah, I'm sorry that you experience lows, and I think it's important to talk about this. I
hmm.
have, just before when was it? Just it was only a month or so ago, that a beautiful young music director in Australia took his own life. And I think this notion of sadness
Right.
and darkness and heaviness in the work we do. We work in one of the most beautiful industries on the planet. We
And
create
you,
story, we share story, we
in the
share.
audience, pardon me, in the audience,
No,
don't 100% understand our pain, what we're going through. All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
And, you know, and we all, especially myself
Mm-mm,
personally, um, we have our low point. We have our
Mm-mm.
high point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am a mental health advocate.
Mm-mm.
You know, I've lost friends to suicide,
Mm-mm.
so I understand. And
Yeah, yeah. Mm,
but that's why, the low point and the high point,
mm,
but surround yourself with people that give
mm,
you courage, give you
mhm,
passion, give
mm,
you fight, and say, you got this,
mm,
keep going, and
mm,
even will be there with you
mm.
during your low point.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
a lot of audience who are watching us on TV, maybe watching us on Broadway or any
Mm,
theater, you know, you can look at us as a character on stage, or you can look at us on a
mm,
TV show or on a movie, but in reality,
mm,
we don't know what they're going through,
mm, mm.
right? 'Cause next
Yeah.
day they could be on their low point, the next day they could be on their
100%.
high point.
And I think this is, Marcy Phillips' book again, when she talks about it's it doesn't mean that all your problems go away. It doesn't mean that because human beings exist in a world of duality. That's the yin and the yang, the high and the low, the dark and the light. That is human existence. And it's just I've been working on a film project called Breathe, which is honoring the voices of health. So I was in Seattle filming and directing this series of shorts, and it's interesting talking to the health workers because you have these people who show up as emergency response workers, NICU nurses, cardiologists, OR nurses, the whole gamut, and all of them are like, gosh, we show up as health workers, and yet we're burning out. The rate of suicide is higher than ever. The intake for people interested in being health workers is lower than ever. Burnout, stress, suicide, depression. And so this is happening again because life has become so linear. The pace of life has become so fast. Now, the human mind can keep up with it. The human mind can keep up with the pace. The human mind can keep putting linear structure in place. The human heart cannot keep up, cannot process that pace. So that's when that disconnect starts to happen, and we start going, oh God, oh God, oh God, I can't. That's when burnout, depression, disassociation all starts to come into place. And so if you put this same experiences into creativity, and you have quantifiable tangibility in, say, health work or corporate work or in these linear structured positions. Where you don't in health work is in an emergency comes in or a woman is having a baby. These are non-linear structures where we don't know what is going to happen. We as medical professionals will do our best to make sure that we can handle the emergency at hand and save the life, do the operation, whatever the process is. Then if you put this into creative world, you go, okay, I'm doing a dance routine. I'm singing a song. I felt my vocal cords crack. I don't know what's happened. What have I done? You're going to try and save yourself and you're going to try and, work with the position. But then when you start, adding into all of this linear structure and pace, burnout, depression, disassociation, suicide, sadness, melancholia. And it's like, how do we as human beings just pull that back a bit and just acknowledge? And to your point about community, this is where we come in to look after each other and create structures of support to just be kinder, slow down, breathe, be nice.
Yes,
You
100%.
know,
You
you
said it.
know.
Everything. We need to
Um,
discuss it. We need to talk about
mm.
it. Um,
And if
but
you're feeling
my
shitty, that's okay. If you're having a shit day, great. Have
right.
the shit day.
Yes, yes. But I will say this. Um, take a moment in your day,
Yeah.
entertainment industry or not,
Mm,
reach out to friends and family members.
mm,
You know, and call your friends. Say, hey, um, I know we haven't talked a while. It's been
Mm,
a minute. Let's have lunch today, or let's have a cup of coffee for 30 minutes, or let's have dinner. Talk.
mm,
Let's talk. I just want to see how you're doing, and that's how we should go and
mm,
look at life and reach out to friends and strangers.
mm,
So,
mm,
I've learned so much from you so far
mm.
because I see the passion in you. I see it. I really do. And, you know, we've touched a lot of bases. We
Mm,
have. And that's what I love. And that's what I want the audience
mm,
and I want the entertainment industry to hear too,
mm,
focus on our mental health.
mm,
Focus on, it's okay for auditions, for parents. And we understand you're nervous. And
mm,
that is very important conversations, those three that I love to talk about because mental health is for sure. You know, you
mm,
we are in this entertainment industry. Our life is like going left and right, left and right. Like we
mm,
can't sleep almost. But also I think it's kind of challenging because when you're an actor or an actress, you step into roles that can mess your mind, mess
mm,
your mental health.
mm,
So I'm just so
mm,
glad we talked about that.
mm, mm.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too, because there's a huge debate with we're talking about the craft of acting, and at the moment it's about finding the person who is the role. So there's there's an interesting there's an interesting process happening to your point of if you are the role and this role is traumatic for you, how do you protect yourself? What structures are in place for you to be able to maintain your sense of center and sense of self, but able to step in to perform the role, the character, the function of the play or the film or the
right.
TV series. And it's a really interesting one. And I think in Britain, a lot of, the actors like McKellen and Dench and, Simon Callow are questioning the the mental health safety of the actor who researches and acts the role versus the person who is the role stepping into the role, and how we
Mhm.
balance those worlds and how we support each other in those ventures. And it's a really interesting one of how we maintain center, how
Right,
we
100%.
prepare, how we prepare, how we support each other, how we play the role, how we act.
hmm And you
Um,
said the key point, support each other.
mm, mm,
You know, I always want to come back to that
mm,
because
mm,
it's important
mm,
that we support each other
mm, mm,
because I always, I have to come back to that because many people do not understand.
mm,
They don't. And when we're in this entertainment industry, right,
mm,
people come to a realization, they come so emotional sometimes.
mm,
They tear up sometimes
mm,
because
mm,
they see, wow, the community
mm,
support.
mm.
But also, it shouldn't be just the entertainment industry. It
Mm-mm.
should be your
Yeah.
own community talking about, me personally, is mental health.
Mm,
We have to talk about mental health.
mm, mm,
But when we show it, our action,
mm,
the action will show the community.
mm,
And I
mm,
believe that we can start by showing our own community.
mm,
And then
mm,
it spreads from there. And it
mm,
keeps spreading. So
mm, mm,
um, that's why I tell everybody keep supporting each other. Also support the community.
mm, mm.
100%.
What are three things you recommend for maintaining mental health?
Well, Number one, um, you know, listen to music, acoustic music, me personally, um, because it helps me calms down. Listen to music that expresses your feelings. Number one. Number two, surround your people that care about you. You know, we're in a day in society that we're so too much about texting only, you know, and that's fine, right? But you cannot express your feelings through texting, right? And it doesn't matter if you're married or not. What happened to the phone call conversations, right? When you have a friend calling you or female friend calling you or anybody, it doesn't matter. They may be calling you for a reason, right? Pick up the phone, talk to them, see how they're doing. If they're gonna cry, they're gonna cry, right? Stay on the phone with them. But when you're texting, you don't have that communication. You can text all this, your long text message, but usually, sometimes I could be wrong. It may lead to an argument between both of you because you can't hear the voice, right? You cannot
Mm,
express your feelings. And the other person cannot express their feelings to say, hey, I'm not trying to start an argument with you. I'm here for you, right? So number two is communication on the phone. You know, number three is, you know, it all falls back to number two, is support. It's the support, right? And pick up the phone, call, text, right? Can be a weekday, could be a weekend. Say, hey, I'm about to have lunch. Um, I don't know. You want to meet me for sushi around 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, right? Something like that. Say, hey, I'm just thinking about you, right? Let's go meet, and you just kind of make a little excuse and say, I'm kind of near your area, which you're not, maybe, but, and it kind of, to me, it kind of encourages them to say, oh, you're kind of near my area, right? And it's like, hey, meet me here. I'm gonna be there, come, let's have coffee, let's have
mm,
lunch, and be ready to spend almost your whole day with that person because they may need that. Man, you may be done for lunch and you can read the
mm,
person and say, hey, are you okay? That's the question you want to ask. Are you okay?
mm,
You know, or say, hey, are you really okay? Or how are you really today? And that really impacts the person because they're going to look at you and says, "Wow, you're acknowledging me."
mm,
And they may say, "Hey, I'm not doing okay at all."
mm,
And then yourself, you're going to say, "You know what? I'm canceling all my plans today on Saturday. You have
mm,
me. Let's go do something fun. We can go walk in the park. We can go see a movie. We can go eat another dinner. We can go eat
mm,
coffee. Let's go somewhere. You have my attention, right? You want to go back to your place and we can watch an emotional movie? We can do that.
mm,
That's three steps for me, and
mm,
of
mm.
course, be there. Be there. But number
Mm.
four, I have four, is
Oh.
is be consistent because that person that you met, the person that you're friend with, guy, females, whatever, they're now trusting you. They have opened up to you. You spent the whole day with that person. You done everything with that person. So their brain, their mindset is they're going to trust you. They're going to call you. They're going to open up to you and say, "Hey, is this a good time to chat?" You
Mm,
can say no or yes. I'm going to call you back in 15 minutes. Make sure you do call them back 15 minutes because they're expecting that. You don't know what's happening.
mm,
They may be sitting there looking at their phone, waiting for you to call in 15 minutes, and that 15 minutes is
mm,
up, and then you never hear from them, and you never call them, that would change them. That's where they're going to look at you and say, why did I open up to that person? Right? And it sucks
mm,
to say this because that's where they're going to say, that person was not really my friend. So
Mhm.
it goes back to what I was saying
Mm.
from one, two, and three. Three, two, and one, all those three steps. But four is what I was trying to say is we as human beings, female friends, guy friends, this goes to high school friends. And I know because we can drive in some states or take the trains,
Mm.
but it impacts teenagers. Be there for your friends,
Mm.
and once you hang out with them, they're opening up to you, you know, call them, text them, or, if they're working and you're off, surprise them. It doesn't matter. You're not hitting on your, and this sounds weird, you're not hitting on your female friend. You can get her
Mm.
flowers, surprise her, go see her, say, hey, I came to check on you.
Mm.
How are you doing today? You know? And they may, he or she, especially for a female, if you just brought flowers, doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or not, you're just showing you're caring. Say, hey, I just got you your favorite Starbucks drinks. She could get a little emotional, or he could get a little emotional and say, hey, how are you
Mm.
doing? I'm not doing great. Okay, you know what? What time do you get off? 5 p.m.? Okay,
Mm.
I'll be back at 5 p.m. Let's go somewhere. That shows more, but you have to be consistent, unless you're
Mm.
sick. But if you're sick, you can still pick up the phone and call them. And we have a lack of that, right?
Mm.
We have the lack of one, two, and three, in my
Mm.
personal opinion, because we are in a society, you know, oh, let's text, right? Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's really not. If you can say, hey, I'm not doing great. Can you call me later? Yeah, no problem. Tell me what's going on. They can send you a text message and say, okay. But if you know it's emotional text message and they're going through things, pick up the
Mm.
phone, call them, communicate. And that to me is not number one. Number big four things for me. And it's the communication, being there, and support, right? And if we have more of that, more love, and picking up the phone, being there for friends, even family members, me personally, I believe the suicide rate could drop. And this
Mm.
includes in the entertainment industry. But, in that to me is my top three. I think a lot of people ask me, and it sounds horrible, but I try not to be mean at people when people say, "Oh, wait, what do you mean? Why do I have to pick up the phone and call them?" And I kind of get a little, you know, I kind of get a little frustrated because I say, you know what? You really care about this person and they're going through things right now, but you're just texting them. I'm being blunt. Don't just text them. Call them.
Mm.
That's probably what they want. No, it's not probably. That's what they want.
Mm.
That if they're telling you this stuff, they're reaching out to you, right? And I understand if you're in a long distance, I hate to say it, spend that little money on the phone, call them, you know, or say, hey, text them and say, hey, you have Skype, I have internet, FaceTime, or
Mm.
you can do a private Instagram video. You have Instagram, you have Skype, what do you have? Let's Zoom talk. We can do Zoom. Let's talk. I'll pay the money so we can talk long on Zoom. I don't care what time it is. Maybe midnight there, it's 10 p.m. a.m. your time. We'll talk.
Mm.
That's how I view it. You have to spend that time, a moment for them because they're going to remember it forever. Because
Mm.
when they are out of that low point in that life, and they may experience it again, but when they're out of that low point in that dark moment time, they're going to always say, you know what? You changed my life. You are the one who was there constantly.
Mm.
You were there calling me and and doing this for me. You were
Mm.
there. You're the one who gave me a purpose to fight, to live and go and live my dream and go for auditions or all this stuff. That is who we need in our life. It's a lot of people, that's how I view it. And that's how you can change the community in your own state and
Mm.
in the entertainment industry. A lot of people say, being in the entertainment industry, it's fun, it's tough, all right? And I think, like you said, a lot of mothers have an issue, right? And so a lot of mothers, I hear you. You're worried for your kids, and I'm there for you. And that's why I say for a lot of teenagers and kids who are in the entertainment
Mm,
industry that
mm,
we need to reach out to other fellow teenagers. If you see she's new in the entertainment industry, reach out, be her friend, be his friend because they need the support. Because later on, you may be seeing they're going through some tough time. You want them to have that support that you got. And they're going to remember you later on. Say, you know what? You were there for me in the entertainment industry because when I first started, now I'm going to pass the chain. And we all going to support each other. And that's what I believe what the entertainment industry is
mm,
doing. That's what it is. You have Instagram supporting each other. And that is what I love. So,
mm,
that's my three things, my four things you can say it. But I know it is a fun but a heart-wrenching message I have to give because
mm,
it is a tough in the entertainment industry, it's a tough message. Be there for each other. But in the real life we're in, be there for each other. Be there. I know we're all
mm,
busy with work, traveling, family, even your own family members, cousins, relatives. Reach out for them, and talk to them, because it could be your own cousin, could be on your brother. You don't know what they're going
mm,
through. Neighbors, right? And I think
mm,
it's not a thing. It's important. It's kind of funny if you make on purpose an extra 5 cups of coffee, and then you're like, "Oh, good morning, my neighbor. You know, here's some coffee I made," and they may look at you like, "Oh, thank you," with a smile, but you never know you have changed that person's life. They're gonna say, "Wow,
mm,
my neighbor acknowledges me. This person acknowledges me." That's what they want, and that is the message. So phone calls is very important. Text messages are very important. FaceTime is very important, but phone calls is very important because we cannot 100% express our feelings in text message. You cannot hear
mm,
the person's voice in a text message. You really can't. You cannot understand their frustration. You cannot understand their emotional, and if they had a death in their family or if something's going on, they may be crying and texting you. You cannot respond in a text message. You don't know. So that's what I'm saying. They're they may be doing that, but they're doing this a hey with exclamation mark. Just pick up the phone and call me. And that is what we need in the society.
mm,
I love technology, but we're too glued on text message. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, there's nothing wrong.
mm,
But let's kind of go back a little bit and start with phone calls
mm,
and text message. That's where I believe we're going to change the community.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I'm gonna write a note in my diary because I'm a chronic texter.
No, well, I personally believe we can change the world slowly, right?
Mm,
And it goes like that. It goes by step,
mm,
and I constantly tell my friends and that there you can't express words. You cannot.
mm,
And I
mm,
think, that's how we're gonna change. You know, it's kind of interesting because maybe you agree, the older generation, the parents' generations, you 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 call them or you text them and they don't respond and they call you and the kids would get so mad. Why are you calling me? What's going on? Blah blah blah. I sent you a text message with a question mark. I'm with my friends. And they're like and the teenagers would get so frustrated in their hairs and the girls get mad and the boys like, I'm with my friends, stop, blah blah. But if they kind of pause for a moment, they can learn from that. The parents is like, I can't function. I have to hear your voice. I have to hear if you're okay. That's what they usually hear from their parents. I just want to make sure you're okay. That hits you because that is encouraging because parents call, even though you're with your friends, and they want to make sure it's you answering the phone and
Yeah.
no stranger. See,
Mm,
that's a key point to all
mm,
the parents
mm.
out there. Wink, wink. Anyways, but but sorry, teenagers, actors out there, and everybody out there listening. But it's a proven point. You
Mm,
know, they want to hear you. Grandparents want to hear you. So that's why
yeah.
that to me took me a while to get. I
Mm,
used to
mm,
be that person that gets so frustrated. I was like, why they're calling me? Why? I can't. I
mm,
just I get my brain
mm.
is going crazy. I'm pulling my hair, and I was like, I can't do this. Can't answer the phone. Text me. But later on, it was like, okay, you hear the grandparents, you hear the
Mm.
people, and you're witnessing it, and they have it on the speakerphone. Your friends are quiet, and it's emotional when you hear the grandparents saying, "I just wanted to hear your voice,"
Yeah.
and that right there, it
Yeah.
gets you.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
gets you.
Yeah. But and it's interesting what you say, like, like if you think of like if you apply it to creative industries, like as the as the actor, that is why you need to connect on these levels because ultimately you're responsible for reflecting human stories. And the more you understand yourself and each other and generations as well, the better you can share and reflect back these stories. Like we have this, this lovely lady called Marietta, and Marietta's in her 90s. And after her husband passed, she made a point of finding friends in every generation. So she wanted to find friends in their 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, teens, and children as well, because she wanted to understand what every generation was going through, what every decade was experiencing, going through, and she wanted to learn their stories and keep like mentally alive by understanding different stories. And she's the most she's the most fantastic lady. And just listening to you talking about, just sharing stories and sharing experiences. And I think it's funny too, because I know when I did the Voices of Women project and the Voices of Health project, the first thing people say is like, so tell me a story. And they're like, oh, I don't have anything interesting to say. And then there'll be some weird pause, and they go, well, I remember this time when I was, 24 and this happened. And you just go, wait, what? Or, there'll be some story that comes out, I mean, I was just home over the holidays and I got this book. I saw this book for my mum, and it's basically this just this sort of diary that this guy's created for get to know your mom, get to know your dad, get to know your brother, get to know, whatever, or, get to know your, like, it's just a series of questions. Where were you born? Do you have brothers or sisters? What were your parents like? What did you do when you were growing up? And so I thought, it's $10. I'll just grab this book. And I'm telling you, I cannot recommend this book more highly for every single person because sometimes, because again, to your point about we've become so reliant on digital communication that sometimes it's hard to know where to start a conversation. Is it okay to ask this question? Is this too personal? Would this be, breaking a boundary? Is this an overstep or, whatever? And so I said to my mum, I was like, okay, so I've got this book. We have to do this book.
Hmm.
She was like, okay. And I'm telling you, it was so great. It was so great. And simple things from like, where did you go to school? And then there was amazing things like one of the questions was, what was your favorite television shows when you're a child? And my mum just screamed laughing. She said, we didn't have a television. We televisions weren't invented. We didn't have a television. We didn't even really have a radio. Like, and all the, because there was the danger of the submarines coming to Sydney Harbour, all the windows were all boarded up. Her father and his brother worked as a warden, going around to all the houses saying, has everyone turned their lights out? We've got like a submarine warning on. They all had to do, and I was like, wait, what? Like, and so she's like, yeah, we all just had to, every night we used to turn out all the lights and sit in the dark, and was the war. Like,
Wow, that is
and it's just like, wait, what? And like just these stories, because, and again, my mum is somebody she's very shy, and she was like, oh, I don't have anything interesting to say. And she used to tell these amazing stories about, there was this one lovely story where, because they used to have to wear white gloves to school and hats and stuff. And this lovely story of one of her friends had lost a glove, so they were sharing gloves, and one they had a glove on each, and the other hand was in the pocket, so they wouldn't get in trouble. you know. And so again, just like, how do you start a conversation to tell stories? And it can be as simple as a theme word, or, where did, a geographical question, or a family question, or something that sparks a conversation that then, is like a roller coaster that, goes through all these highs and lows and circles around of this life story. But so often conversation can be so surface now that it's just like, oh yeah, I did the audition, or yeah, I went and grabbed coffee, or it's like, okay, and and but it's sometimes I mean, Brené Brown has been a huge one about vulnerability. And they're calling this current stage of existence the age of trauma, where everyone is existing in their trauma or wanting to talk about their trauma. And it's like, well, okay, but what is the source of that? What is the journey into and through it? What is the journey towards the light, and the moving past the trauma to presence and center and stability and function, as opposed to existing in pain? But how do we have those conversations when everything is about doing? Or, I was messaging with a friend today about labeling. I am is enough. That's the sentence. I am enough is the sentence. But we're still living in this realm of, I am because of label. I am because of XYZ. I am because I was on Broadway. I am because I booked a job. I am enough because I won a gold medal at the Olympics. Like, what is the label that quantifies and qualifies my existence, as opposed to, I am me. That's
That's
enough.
true.
That's it.
100%.
You know?
100%. 100%. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Appreciate you. We touched a lot of bases.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. It's gonna help a lot of people out there.
Mm,
And
mm.
thank you again.
Oh,
Thank you.
and the one thing I will say is that I think, in terms of, like, if we take it back to creative pursuits and stuff, the one thing I will say, because we've spent a lot of time talking about the lows and the darkness, and we've touched on the highs, but I think in terms, if we really relate it to creative pursuits, everyone needs to remember that it's a play, not a serious. I'm in the play. I'm going to see the play. I'm preparing to audition for the play. I'm not in the serious. I'm not preparing to be in the serious. I'm existing in a creative space to play, to enjoy, to bring light to, myself, my friends, my
Hmm.
community, my family, each
Amen.
other. Like, play, laugh,
Yes,
enjoy.
yes, yes. I agree with you. The positive, the love, the
Right.
vibe in the
Right,
entertainment
right, right,
industry.
right.
I totally agree with you. Where
Mm.
can people find you on social media?
Oh, okay. I am on Instagram, at Kaye Tuckerman. I am on Facebook. I think it's just at Kaye Tuckerman. I'm not currently on TikTok because we're all paused on TikTok. I'm on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. But LinkedIn and Instagram are my two favorites. And if you want to reach out through my website, it's just kaytuckerman.com. If any parents need to, some advice with their kids, if any kids need coaching. Um, please just reach out. We're all in this together. So,
Yes, we are 100%. We're all in this together.
yeah.
Am much appreciate you coming on. It's been a long time the journey.
I know. I was in Shanghai when we were first talking, and I was like, oh, I don't know how I'm in school at the moment for my doctorate. I was in a different time zone. I was learning Natasha, Pierre, and the Great Comet. It was like I don't know how. Yes, but when. And so now is the time. It's been lovely.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you,
you.
thank you. And I would love to have you back again.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime. Yeah,
You know,
this has been delightful.
I would definitely reach out to you and have you back and have more conversation because this was a really good topics that we talked about, and
Yeah.
everybody is going to learn from it and hear from it and understand the journeys, the up and
Yeah.
downs in entertainment industry and also in the real life world.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, I mean, to wrap up closing statements, I remember when I did the world premiere of The Boy from Oz, which, was in Australia 100 years ago. And there's an amazing, the writer of that was the amazing Nick Enright. And there's an incredible line. Peter Allen was an amazing Australian entertainer who conquered Broadway and was a wonderful showman. Hugh Jackman played Peter Allen on Broadway. And so the show is called The Boy from Oz. And in Nick Enright's amazing script, there's a line where older Peter, who's nearing the end of his life, talks to young Peter, who's dreaming of being this, famous entertainer. And he says, there'll be highs and good times, and there'll be lows and bad times, but it's all a part of the journey, and it'll be a wonderful ride.
That is 100% true. 100%. I like that. Thank you again for coming on. I look forward to having you back on, and I will talk to you soon.
Yay! My pleasure. Thanks so much. And just keep being awesome. And to everybody out there, if you're going through it, it's going to be okay. Just keep riding the lows and you're going to conquer. And to anybody who's, really just smashing it, all power to you. And I'm cheerleading everybody all the way. So, yeah, let's keep creating. Have the
Yes.
courage to put the first brush stroke on the blank canvas.
Yes, 100% true. Keep encouraged, keep the fight,
Yeah.
keep fighting. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's true. So thank you again. I look forward to having you back and we'll stay in touch.
Awesome. Take care, my friend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.